Today, we are tracking a forecast that's about to throw a curveball at a lot of people, because this next heat wave is very different from what we've already dealt with this summer. So let's jump right into it. The biggest story right now is going to be a sprawling, stubborn heat dome that's setting up shop right as we head into the 4th of July holiday. And I want to be upfront with you. The reason I keep saying this one is different is because of how this thing is structured and how long it's going to stick around. We're not talking about a quick 2 or 3 day spike where you tough it out and then a front comes through and resets everything. This is going to start building across the south and the plains. And within just a few days, it's going to take over as the #1 weather story in the entire country. And it's not going anywhere fast. So here's the setup. We've got a big dome of high pressure that's going to anchor itself over the central and southern plains initially, but instead of just sitting in one spot like these domes typically do, this one is forecast to slowly expand and shift eastward over the course of the coming week, swallowing up the Mississippi Valley, the Ohio Valley, and eventually pushing into the Appalachians and the Mid-Atlantic right around the holiday itself. That's the part that makes this different. A normal heat dome parks, bakes one region for a few days, and moves on. This one is more like a slow-rolling wave that keeps adding new territory to its footprint as the days go on, which means almost nobody in the central and eastern U.S. gets a free pass just because they're farther from the original center. We're talking widespread 90s to low 100s across a massive chunk of the country, and once you add in the moisture, it's going to feel like 105 to 110 degrees in a lot of places during the afternoons. Much of the region is landing under a major heat risk, with pockets of extreme heat risk likely in the Midwest and Ohio Valley, which is where the worst of this looks like it's going to set up. Now here's the difference that has me genuinely more concerned about this one compared to other heat waves we've covered. A lot of heat waves give you a break overnight. The sun goes down, temperatures drop into the 70s, your body gets a chance to recover, and you head into the next day reset. This one isn't going to do that in a lot of places. I'm seeing data that suggests we could break dozens of records, especially with nighttime lows, with thermometers struggling to drop below 80 or even 85 degrees in the early morning hours in some of the hardest hit areas. That's what actually makes this kind of heat wave dangerous in a way that a hotter but shorter event wouldn't be. When it never cools off overnight, your body doesn't get the recovery window it needs, and the heat stress just piles up and compounds day after day rather than resetting. So if you live anywhere from the Great Plains to the East Coast, build your cooling plan now. Make sure the AC is actually working, not just turned on. Grab a couple extra bags of ice. The bottom line here is that this isn't going to be a couple of unusually hot days. This is shaping up to be a long, potentially dangerous heat wave that's going to test millions of people over the coming week and right through the holiday. But before that heat fully takes over, we've actually got some real severe weather to get through first up across the northern plains. There's an enhanced risk, a level 3 out of 5, in place for eastern Montana and western North Dakota, including Baker and Bismarck. An area of low pressure is deepening over northeast Wyoming and western South Dakota, and that's going to drag mid-60s dew points northward, loading the atmosphere up by this afternoon. On top of that, we've got a 50 to 60 knot punch of wind aloft slamming into that unstable air, and that's all the spin these storms are going to need to get organized and rotating. I'm expecting supercells capable of dropping hail larger than 2 inches, bigger than golf ball size, especially within the hatched zone on our maps. As these storms mature into the evening, they're likely to merge into one big line and throw down destructive wind gusts up to 75 miles per hour. If you're in Baker or Bismarck, you know the drill here. An EF3 tornado hit this exact area back in June of 2016, so we can't completely rule out a tornado risk in a setup like this. Right now, though, wind and hail look like the dominant threats. Still, I'd treat every severe thunderstorm warning today like it's a tornado warning, because a lot of these are going to be those considerable to destructive, severe thunderstorm warnings with winds over 75 miles per hour, and that's worth taking shelter for regardless of the exact wording on the warning. While the plains are dealing with that, a completely separate system is stirring up trouble along the east coast as well. There's a level 2 out of 5 slight risk for severe storms aimed at southeast Virginia and northeast North Carolina, including Norfolk, and Virginia Beach. A stalled front is likely to spark a line of storms in the afternoon and evening, capable of putting down some pretty damaging wind gusts. That same stalled front is also going to become a set of train tracks for heavy rain across the Ohio and Tennessee valleys, and that's why we've got a slight risk for localized flash flooding in that corridor over the next couple of days. We're talking round after round of rain hitting similar spots, and some of these areas are already fairly waterlogged, so even a couple more inches falling all at once could be enough to cause real flash flooding concerns. If you're in Ohio, Tennessee, or Virginia, keep an eye on these storms and the rainfall totals, because all of this is happening right before that heat takes over completely. Heading into the next day or two, That plane's severe threat is going to slide east into the upper Midwest, with a new slight risk covering eastern North Dakota, northern Minnesota, and northwest Wisconsin, including Fargo and Duluth, as that building heat ridge to the south pumps a plume of rich, humid air northward underneath some steep. Temperature drops aloft. That's pure storm fuel for the northern tier. We can see some morning activity, but the main show is likely later in the day once the atmosphere destabilizes again. These are exactly the kind of ridge-riding storms that can produce large hail, damaging winds, and a tornado risk. We'll need to keep watching closely as we get more data. If you're going to be out on the lakes up in northern Minnesota, don't let a calm morning fool you, because the afternoon could turn ugly in a hurry. Now let's get back to that building heat, because if you've got outdoor plans for the 4th of July, this is the part you really need to lock in on. We're looking at an extreme heat risk area developing across parts of the Mississippi, Ohio, and Tennessee valleys, with the Great Lakes included in that zone, and even areas over toward the Appalachians and the Mid-Atlantic. Wrapped around that is a moderate risk covering much of the central and eastern U.S. right through the holiday itself. Temperatures are going to be running more than 10, maybe even 15 degrees above normal, with heat index values sitting around 100 to 110 degrees, and that heat pushing into the upper 90s, as far north as the Great Lakes. I know a lot of people are wondering whether this wrecks their barbecue and fireworks plans. Some of you are thinking, this just means it's a good excuse to get in the pool, and hey, I get it. But if you're going to be outside for any extended period during this stretch, I would not recommend just toughing it out. You need an actual plan to stay hydrated and stay cool, especially if you're heading to any big outdoor event or parade. Don't take this lightly. I'm seeing a growing number of spots where both daytime highs and nighttime lows could tie or break daily records, including in the higher terrain, where we could be sitting in the 100s during the day and only dropping into the 80s overnight. Here's the part I'm watching closest going forward. There's a real possibility this entire heat dome could slide or retrograde westward later in the stretch, and if that happens, the most extreme heat would expand back into the plains, the Mississippi Valley, and the interior west, which would bring some relief to the east. Coast, but mean the middle of the country just keeps baking right through the holiday and beyond. This is exactly the kind of setup that lands people in the medical tent at outdoor events. A 100-degree heat index in direct summer sun is no joke. If you're hosting anything outdoors during this window, make sure you've got shade available and an air-conditioned space people can duck into if they start feeling overheated. Now, amid all the storms and the heat, there are actually some really nice weather windows out there if you know where to look. Right now, the best weather in the country is sitting over Wisconsin and both peninsulas of Michigan, with highs in the mid to upper 70s, crisp dew points in the upper 50s, and rain. Chances sitting at essentially zero. If you've got outdoor plans in that part of the country in the next day or two, take full advantage, because that comfortable air is going to get pushed out and replaced by the same miserable humidity everyone else is dealing with before too long. That comfortable stretch is also going to slide a bit further east, opening up a nice window for upstate New York and northern New England, with highs around the mid-70s and very light wind. If you live anywhere near the Great Lakes or upstate New York, get outside and enjoy it while it lasts, because soon enough, you're going to be wishing for these temperatures back. And that's pretty much all the weather talk I've got for today. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you like this video. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.